What if the way you connect or try to connect with others isn't really about you, but about what happened to you? What if the teachings you grew up with, the rules, the doctrine, the faith actually reinforce fears you learned? I'm going to break down developmental trauma and religious trauma and how they intersect, and then how to heal. Developmental trauma happens when a child's emotional needs are consistently unmet with caregiving relationships. So, unlike single trauma events, developmental trauma is chronic. It's with primary caregivers, mom, dad, some form of attachment that this person was supposed to support you in your development of your brain, your nervous system, and your emotional identity. So, all of these are forming, and you're not getting your needs met. So, a caregiver is responsive by the way that they attune to the child. So children rely on caregivers not only for survival, but emotional regulation. So emotional attunement is really noticing what your child is feeling, and how you respond. Do you respond with empathy? Are you able to regulate not only your own emotions and then help them regulate theirs? So do you offer reassurance? When emotional attunement is present, then the child develops a secure attachment style. A secure attachment child feels my feelings make sense. My needs matter. I can rely on others when I'm distressed. When emotional needs are unmet, when they're unmet repeatedly, dismissed, ignored, children will adapt to maintain that connection. So then developmental trauma experiences include caregivers that are uncomfortable with emotions. They dismiss emotions, they minimize emotions, and then love is conditional, approval is conditional. So independence is masked as obedience. Also, developmental trauma can be the parentification of kids. So children caring for their adult, for their caregiver. So the roles are reversed. So children may hear messages like "Stop crying," "You're too sensitive," "You're fine," "You're the strong one," "You're so mature for your age." The trauma is often subtle. There may be no visible abuse, but the child learns powerful lessons about relationships during this time. How children adapt when their emotional needs are not met consistently. So these are survival skills. And these adaptations may include minimizing your emotions, minimizing your needs, becoming highly responsible, overly responsible. Then you have the people pleasing, hiding vulnerability, and then a disconnection from your body sensations, and this hyper independence. So these patterns are what psychologists, counselors in our field called insecure attachment. With the insecure attachment, the internal belief is that children believe that their needs are too much. People aren't going to respond to them anyways. I must take care of things myself. Things only get done when I do them. And vulnerability is risky. Emotional expression creates problems. And then these beliefs influence your adult relationships. It will affect your self-worth. It will affect the way you're able to regulate your emotions. And if you trust others, if you don't trust yourself in your body, how are you going to trust other people? So the hidden layer beneath insecure attachment is an unacknowledged grief. So this is a grief for comfort that was never received, emotional safety that was missing, to the child who learned to cope alone. These patterns developed for one reason: survival. With the developmental trauma, then religious trauma overlays that. So if you're in a religion, it can be a support and a risk. So for many people, a religion, provides meaning and community and support and moral guidance, emotional support. However, in some highly authoritative environments, religious structures may unintentionally reinforce attachment injuries, messages that can reinforce insecure attachments. Children are in rigid religious environments may encounter messages like obedience over emotional expression, suppression of doubt. Teaching emphasizes deny yourself, shame around normal emotional needs, authority figures discouraging questioning. When emotional experiences are labeled sinful, rebellious, or spiritually weak, then we internalize this. And my feelings are unsafe. Questioning is dangerous. My needs are selfish. Vulnerability is wrong. I'm wrong. Whew, so then you have developmental trauma, you have religious trauma, and then you're unable to distinguish between parental authority and spiritual authority. Both represent structures of safety, belonging, meaning, and when you feel emotionally unsafe, then a child may suppress their emotions, conform to expectations, disconnect from themselves, from eternal experiences. And then these survival strategies go into adulthood. So, what we learn to survive in childhood, we bring into our adult relationships. In my book, I write about how I overcame this, how developmental trauma and religious trauma showed up in my life, and how it impacted me. So I wrote about this in Drowning in Doctrine, one personal exploration of these experiences. So my book explores the intersection of religious identity, survival, psychological survival, emotional development, spiritual authority. Women growing up in the rigid confines of Mormon faith, my internal conflict between obedience and authenticity, my emotional impact of doctrine on how I formed my identity, the consequences of when I questioned these beliefs. The title itself reflects a powerful experience many survivors describe, feeling overwhelmed by belief systems that once defined my entire world. Drowning in doctrine. Deconstructing. In my book, I also explore how I overcame this, how I questioned belief systems, reclaiming my emotional truth, rebuilding identity outside of imposed expectations. It's possible. Just because you come out of childhood with the insecure attachment. I did. And then with therapy and support, group support, and then finding my own spiritual path, I was able to gain and earn secure attachment style. And so that really means learning how to trust myself. So people that didn't grow up with a secure attachment, later we can heal, right? With support. Earned security can develop through self-awareness, acknowledging that this really helped. So get a good therapist, learn how to be safe with yourself, and then process the unresolved grief, and then rebuilding trust with others after you trust yourself. So healing often involves developing earned secure attachment. And how do you get that? You acknowledge the trauma. You acknowledge those survival patterns. You validate your experience, your childhood experiences. They were real. And then you relearn to regulate your emotions. You allow yourself to be vulnerable. You trust people. And with time, you learn the person that you can trust and the people that you can't trust. And then daily affirmations. My needs are valid. I can take up space in this world. Vulnerability can coexist with strength. So I can trust my internal thoughts.